In exercise 1810, we're going to be looking at activity rates. And so in the prior problems, we talked about plant-wide overhead rates, and then we got more specific and we talked about departmental overhead rates. And so activity rates, which go along with activity-based costing, what that does is it's saying a overhead is created not just by a factory as a whole, not just by a department, but each individual activity that we do creates cost at a different rate. So the more activities that we can identify, then when we look at the product, we can actually go, hey, this product uses a lot of this activity or just a little bit of this activity. So what we can do is we can understand better how much cost a product should be allocated based on very specific activities that it takes to create that product. So anytime you can have more information on what a product costs, you're going to make better decisions. So in this one, we have Atlas Enterprises that makes elliptical exercise machines and treadmills. And they have a fabrication, assembly, and production departments. But they went deeper than that, and they identified activities such as fabrication, assembly, setup, inspecting, production scheduling, and purchasing. And so based on this information, we can actually dig down deeper to figure out what is the true overhead that each of these products, the elliptical and treadmills, creates. So it wants us to use the activity rate and usage information to calculate the total activity and cost per unit for each product. So first, we've it broken down by activity, and then we're going to figure out, hey, how much usage do we have for each one of these? So for the fabrication, we have 700 hours. For assembly, we have 182 direct labor hours. And so that's another thing, is that instead of just picking direct labor hours or machine hours or whatever it is, we can be more specific on the driver that creates that cost. For example, fabrication is probably a very machine-based process or activity, so it makes sense that we use machine hours to drive that cost. However, the purchasing activity, that's not driven necessarily by, it's not by machine hours, certainly. Could be a labor hours, but more likely, for every purchase order we make, that's what's going to be the drive the cost. So we can make a different base for that. So for the setup, we have 20 setups, 10 inspections, 30 production orders, and 56 purchase orders. And then we identified the cost per each one of those. So for fabrication machine hours, we have $28 per machine hour. Then we have $20 per direct labor hour, $75 per setup, $30 per inspection, $12 for production order, and $8 for purchase orders. So now we can just multiply these together. Messed up my formatting, that's okay. We can fix that. So if we add up our total cost, lost my heading here, there we go. So we have 25,000 of total activity cost, and we have units produced, we have 400. So now we have the total cost to the elliptical and then the total units. So we can get a per unit cost to be allocated of $64.62. So we just do the exact same thing with the treadmills. And so the treadmills have a different number of usage. So we've got 600 machine hours, 64 direct labor hours, 15 setups, 16 inspections, 20 production orders, and 75 purchase orders. But our activity rates, so that's not going to change. Those are going to remain the same. So we can actually just copy those over. And then multiply those across. And there's 250 units of the treadmill. So we divide our total cost of 20,000 divided by our units. And so for treadmills, we would allocate $82 of overhead versus the ellipticals of only $64.62 of overhead.